We're going to get started. So our next speaker really doesn't really need a major introduction from me. He is the sole reason why we're all here, because he had a vision, he had a dream, and he's, over the past, 15, 20 years, has been educating and doing amazing things for people around the world. And before we bring him to the stage, just check out the video screen.
So the first rule in business is you must add value to society in some way. Old school is just make a profit, who cares if it adds value? New school is predominantly social mission. What is your social mission for your company? You see where this all starts? You should be going out in the world saying, how can I change the world and make it a better place?
Why isn't there a school or university that teaches you how to become successful? Why are some people more successful than others when you grow up in the same country? These were the questions that plagued Jamie McIntyre in his early 20s. You see, Jamie thought he was doing everything right, everything he had been taught that he needed to do to be successful in life. Yet he found himself broke, with no job, no prospects, and sleeping on a friend's couch. Hanging over his head, a $150,000 debt and a business about to go bust. Growing up on a farm in Glen Innes in northern New South Wales, from an early age, Jamie, like most Australians, was exposed to an education system that promotes conformity. Go to school, get good grades, and get a job for life. When he arrived at this point in his life, facing bankruptcy, Jamie began studying successful people. People that have produced an outstanding result in business and in life. He knew there must be a simpler way. Jamie discovered that there is no big secret, there is no magic formula, but there is a certain mindset and some simple strategies that successful people use that isn't taught in schools and universities. So Jamie founded a company to do exactly that. 21st Century Education provides a modern-day education, teaching leading-edge financial strategies needed for the 21st century. Within a few years, Jamie had gone from flat broke to a self-made millionaire using the strategies he had discovered. Since then, Jamie has founded over a dozen companies that turn over $40 million annually. Jamie has hosted the likes of Sir Richard Branson, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Tim Ferriss, author of The 4-Hour Body and The 4-Hour Workweek, Randy Zuckerberg, the co-founder of Facebook, Mark Bouris, the chairman of Yellow Brick Road, and Ruslan Kogan, the founder and CEO of Kogan.com. He is the author of the best-selling title, What I Didn't Learn at School But Wish I Had, and he has since written a dozen other titles. In 2013, Jamie launched the 21st Century Australia Political Party and campaigned for the seat of New England in an effort to shake up the political duopoly and create a prosperous economy for all Australians to share in. In 2014, Jamie expanded his media interests, launching the Australian National Review newspaper, Australia's first true independent, unbiased newspaper. 21st Century Media also publishes half a dozen magazines within Australia. Jamie and the 21st Century Group has reached over 650,000 people. His goal is to now educate 1 million people globally. Tens of thousands of people have already benefited from these courses and are now living a better life with more money and more time than they were before.
Can we please be on your feet, and let's give it up for Mr. Jamie McIntyre is in the house. Come on, let's put your hands together for him.
How are you doing this morning? Good. Am I on team? Hear that? Yep. Well, it's great to be here. I love being in Queensland. Beautiful one day, perfect the next. I just want to welcome you along. It's been 17 years ago I first delivered this particular program, so it's been quite a journey. And I set out many years ago with a mission to deliver an education I believe that should have been taught at school. That could have been taught at school, that would have made such a big difference to my life. So I really went out to say, what would I love to learn at school? And that was the basis for creating this. And I'm glad to say today, after 17 years, one of the dreams is to make this education global and available for people around the world at no charge. So I want to welcome in those people from all around the world, from many different countries, whether it's Russia, United States, Singapore, Papua New Guinea, New Zealand, Japan, Austria, Netherlands, and more countries that are joining throughout the day and this weekend. Because my belief is that the world can be a better place. And you might jot this down: ignorance is not bliss. As some people might highlight, ignorance is not bliss. I believe most of the world's problems, whether it's on a personal level or on a national or global level, can be solved through education. So I'm a big believer in education. Mark Twain once said, never let schooling get in the way of a good education. So I'm a little bit of a contrarian when it comes to the right education, and that's what I look at this weekend. So it's an honor and privilege to have the chance to share with you, not just those who are in the room here, but those that are watching from home or wherever you're watching this from, to share, I guess, with you this weekend some insights, concepts, strategies, ideas, things that I've been fortunate enough and blessed to learn, that I'm very grateful to have learned off many amazing mentors, many millionaires and billionaires I've had the privilege to study off, and not just in financial areas or in business, but remarkable people in all aspects of life, whether it's through health or relationships, all the areas of our life that make a big difference. So, no doubt, like most of us, we continually want to improve. So I'm going to make the assumption you're in this room this weekend or watching in that you're someone that's open-minded. Raise your hand if you consider yourself to be open-minded. I would assume to be here, you'd have to be open-minded and willing to believe or accept that perhaps there's things out there, there's ideas or concepts or strategies or different ways of thinking that can improve your life. I don't think it matters how well someone's doing. I've had many multi-millionaires come to my events, and people say, well, they're already incredibly wealthy. What are they coming to learn? Well, there's so much more to learn. Even Jamie Packer, around a billionaire around money. Is it possible for him to do better? Yes or no? Certainly financially or even other aspects of his life. It doesn't matter who we are. I believe our life should be a constant and never-ending improvement as we continue to learn and grow. And tomorrow I'm going to share with you some things. This weekend is really about, and I said, like providing a modern-day 21st century education that you can use every day of your life. And as I said, it come about because of a frustration. I always remember going, at 5 years of age, I was told I had to go to this thing called school. I grew up on a farm in northern New South Wales, about 5 hours from here. And I enjoyed being outdoors with my dad and my granddad and, enjoying that life. I didn't understand at 5 years of age why we had to go to school, but I was told I had to go to school to get good grades, study really hard, that one day I'd get me a good job. And if I worked really well in that good job all my life, I'd eventually retire to the good life. By the way, how's that going for everyone in the 21st century? Wow. So that was the formula that I was taught, and most of us relate to that because it's the formula that you were taught. We were conditioned into that level of thinking. And in the past, there was nothing wrong with that level of thinking. What a lot of people don't understand with education, in the hundreds of years ago, education was only provided for the wealthy kids. There was no public education. And then the idea of Henry Ford and mass production come along, the industrialization era. And as a result of that, they realized in the industrialization era, they needed to have factory workers. They needed people to move from the country where most people were self-sufficient and basically entrepreneurs. They were farmers in most cases, and to move to cities, urbanization, and working factories and production lines. So they had to create an education system, but predominantly would teach people, jot this down, would predominantly teach people how to conform. How to conform. Conformity was the key, because let's face it, if you're going to work on a production line, they didn't want you being a creative little spark and going, maybe we won't put this nut on today, let's try something different. Okay, they needed conformity. That's why at school you have to answer to a bell and show up at class in the right time, follow instructions. There's pretty much there's one right answer. You submit the essay that the teacher wants to get the score. Creative thinking is generally not rewarded in an outdated education system. So the world needed people to conform, so it bred a lot of conformists, people that really, what you would say, institutionalized, couldn't really think for themselves. So at 5 years of age, bright, creative, intelligent little sparks go off to a thing called school, and 12 years later they come out less than bright, creative, intelligent little sparks. Does that make sense? They're being conditioned, conformed, and taught to think a certain way. And as a result of that, many of the skill sets or things that we should be taught at school, we simply weren't. We effectively went, most of us in this room went to a 20th century school that was designed in the 19th century. Yet we now go out into the world in the 21st century, a rapidly changing world that has changed so much, not just in the last 50 years, but how much has the world changed the last 10 years? When I went to school, there was no internet. No, for some of you in the room, that seems remarkable. Others of you would know exactly what I mean. When we had computer classes, there was a little box, and black screen, and most people hated computing because it was boring. It wasn't what we see today, is it true? Now, many of you in the room go, well, Jamie, when I went to school, they hadn't even invented computers. True? I'm Generation X, but the baby boomers in the room, how much has the world changed already in our lifetime? But here's the challenge that we face. No matter what Western society we live in, okay? Most of Western education is a conformist, outdated education, yet then we send people out into the real world to succeed, and many people find out they've been sold a lie. The lie is go to school, get a good education, get a job for life, and you'll retire to the good life and live happily ever after. Unfortunately, that's not working so well. Ask people in the United States that are listening how much they pay for a traditional education, how much debt they're in the time they finish college, and then they can't get a job in many cases. And then their parents or grandparents that went secured their house to pay for a very expensive education are being foreclosed. Is that really turned out well for them? So I'm a big believer in education, but my message this weekend has got to be the right education. And so as a result of that, we have produced many people that have learned to conform. Now, there's a bit of a challenge with that. In the 21st century, let me give you an example. Let's say we're in Brisbane today, and we wanted to travel to Sydney. If we're following a map, just like the education system, 20th century education that was designed in the 19th century, if we followed a map that is from the 19th century to get from Brisbane to Sydney, and that's the only map that we have, we will probably make it to Sydney, yes or no? Possibly, okay, possibly. There could be a bit of doubt about it because the roads would be, well, some of the roads on the map just don't exist anymore, or many of the roads that are there now aren't there. We might get there, but we're going to have to work very hard. It's going to take us a lot longer, a lot more effort, and if we're lucky, we might make it because the map that we're following is heavily outdated. And this is the challenge most people face in their life today. We know common sense would dictate, well, hang on a minute. If we're following an old map, common sense would say, how about we get a new what? A new map. It's true? A new map that's designed for the 21st century. Now, we all know we wouldn't even need a map. We would simply go onto our iPhones or our smartphones, and we would basically look up the GPS, type it in now, and say Sydney, from Brisbane. It would show you the route, or the two different major highways to get there. It would show you exactly how long it'll take, and you pretty much could not get lost. Is that true? Okay. Some people could probably pull it off, but generally you shouldn't get lost. And you get there much quicker, and instead of horse and buggy from the 19th century, you could go on a car or a train. Make sense? That's what we do. A new map makes it a lot easier. Didn't have to be any more intelligent. Wouldn't have to work any harder. Actually, you could work less and still get the same result. Or we all also know today is that there's a thing called an aeroplane. You can jump on in an hour, you can be in Sydney. Does it make sense? So you can actually get there from A to B that much quicker with a fraction of the effort, a fraction of the cost of even driving. See, just by having that knowledge, you can get the results you want that people without that knowledge or following an old map that are doing everything they were taught to do, but they end up deeply frustrated, deeply lost, and can't figure it out. Who's following what I'm saying here? So what we're going to look at this weekend is if we can get the updated map, a map for the 21st century, that will involve that shift in thinking. How do we have to think? What's our psychology we require to be able to excel in today's rapidly evolving world? But also, what's the tools and strategies and concepts that we can apply to our life that will have each and every one of us in this room and those around the world watching be able to improve our life immediately? Now, this is not about a pump up of some motivation for the weekend, okay? Sure, you'll feel more inspired and motivated to get out there and do things, but this is about life, education for life, lifelong strategies, tools that you can add to your toolbox, that you can apply to your life, that you can start applying today and tomorrow and start to see, in many cases, significant changes. So, of course, this weekend we're going to talk a lot about financial strategies. I know a lot of you are motivated to do. Who's motivated to do better and have more abundance in their life? Who's ready to accept more abundance in their life? Very good, most of us. So we're going to look at things, and I'll share with you the strategies, some of the strategies I used in the past, some of them I'm using now, that are taking me from, I grew up on a farm, we worked hard. We weren't wealthy as kids, but I had to create. I mean, I was at 21 years of age or 22 years of age, almost bankrupt, sleeping on a friend's couch in Sydney, and my first business had failed, and I was staving off bankruptcy. $150,000 in debt, which I'd secured personally, which at the time I thought was a lot of money. And so I had to start from, some people say, well, these strategies work if I have no money, Jamie. And I say, well, if you're starting from zero, it's a good place, because I started well below zero. So coming from personal experience, am I likely to accept excuses why you can't do some of these things? Yes or no? No, because what good is a coach if they accept excuses from a student? See, the reason I was able to outperform and become a self-made millionaire in my 20s from a below zero start, to go on and create numerous businesses and be able to invest heavily into making a difference in things that I want to see change in the country and the world, was simply because I had some good mentors in the beginning. And they were good in the sense, one of my first millionaire mentors, a wealthy guy in Sydney. So I was sleeping on my friend's couch, and one of my friends is actually here today. You'll get to meet Warren Stokes. I think he'll speak to you briefly later tonight. Warren said to me, and this is what we're talking, I was 21, 22, I'm guessing, so it's, we're talking 20 years ago now. So, and he said, look, he just started working in this group of companies in Sydney. He said, you should come try and work here. The guy that owns all these companies, he's a multi-millionaire, you're looking for a mentor, I'll try and get you a job. And that was the start of the journey, and I realized, you know what? Everything I was learning up until then, it just wasn't working, because I wasn't taught at school how to manage money, how to eliminate debt. I wasn't taught at school how to start a business. I wasn't taught at school how to think for myself. I wasn't taught any of these things. And I put myself through the first year of university. I was studying to be an accountant, only because my careers advisor had said to me, Jamie, if you want to make lots of money when you grow up, then you should become an accountant. Now, any accountants in the room or watching would be like, well, that's quite humorous, but I don't know why my careers advisor told me that. So the only reason I went to university to be an accountant was because my career advisor said that's what I should do. And most young people, we don't really know what we want to do, so we just go and do something while we're trying to figure it out, true? But to go to university, I'd move away, I had to pay for my rent, pay for my tuition. It was a very expensive exercise, and my parents didn't have the money to pay for it. I had to pay for it myself. And as a teenager, I'd done quite well and made some decent money working on the farm, etc. So I was entrepreneurial, but I always remember sitting in lectures at university, and I was paying attention mainly because I calculated how much each word from the lecture was actually costing me. These are the most highly priced seminars I've ever been to in my entire life, was university. And what I was doing on weekends, I joined a network marketing company, and on weekends I was going to these seminars, motivational seminars for this particular company. It was costing me like $10 a ticket. And I was going to these events on weekends, and I was learning off multi-millionaires, sharing techniques of how to become wealthy, and it was costing me like $10, and these are people that had done it. Then I'd go during the week to university, and I was listening off people that were maybe professors or just teaching theory that had never actually left school and teaching me things, but I was paying like thousands and thousands of dollars, and something didn't quite add up. I decided I was learning off people that had PhD in theory at university. No disrespect to the professors out there. I'm going to talk about some of them this weekend. A PhD in theory. But I wanted to learn off people that had a PhD in results. Does it make sense? Two very big different things. Because the idea that academic success is going to lead to a success in life or success in business or success in finances is a myth. No disrespect, jot this down. Albert Einstein, fairly intelligent guy academically as well. He said the true definition of intelligence, the true definition of intelligence is not how many degrees you have up on the wall, but the true definition is the ability to entertain a new idea. The ability to entertain a new idea. He said that's the true definition of intelligence. And I added to that to say, you know, not just the ability to entertain a new idea, I would suggest as well, it's the ability to action a new idea. It's the ability to action a new idea. When you think about this weekend, what we're going to look at is let's look at some new ideas, then let's look at how do we action ideas. The only reason I become a multi-millionaire in my 20s, the only reason I've been able to live almost every dream I could have imagined back then, experiences, you know, different things I've lived a blessed life. And I don't share that with you to impress you, but impress upon you that this stuff works. I'm a walking, talking example of it, what it did to my life. And all I did was be smart enough to have an open mind, consider new ideas. Because when I was younger, I used to think I knew everything. Raise your hand if you're willing to admit when you were younger, you perhaps thought you knew everything, okay? I was one of those, you know, young people that thought, you know, when you're young, you think, my God, you know everything. And to my first millionaire mentor said, Jamie, jot this down. He said, I don't care how much you know. All I'm interested in, jot this down. He said, all I'm interested in is what results are you producing? He said, I don't care how much you know. I'm only interested in what results you're producing, because he said the truth is in the result. Does that make sense? Because to know and not to do is to not what? It's not to know. I have a suspicion that many of you in this room know a hell of a lot more than what you're actually doing, if you're honest with yourself. True? You know a hell of a lot more than what you're actually doing. For some of you this weekend, it's just going to get you to act on what you already know, and you know your life would be better. True? Just get yourself to act more. And there's a psychology behind that, and we'll go through a process. You know, how to eliminate procrastination, how to develop a strong sense of urgency, how to tap into your life purpose, where your life becomes a mission, where you don't need motivation anymore. You naturally are driven. And if you're not on purpose, not driven to make a difference, you won't be ultimately happy. It's a guiding force within you that you can tap into, that can have your life become one of service, one of contribution, one of which will lead to fulfillment, which will lead to a lot more happiness. It will also lead to a lot more abundance, because you have a high driving purpose behind what you're doing. Who's following what I'm saying here? Okay? There's a certain psychology of that, psychology that can be modeled off some of the wealthiest people on the planet, not just wealthy financially, but wealthy in spirit, wealthy in happiness. Because this weekend is, you know, not just about the science of achievement. Yes, we're going to learn a lot of things that help us achieve more and have more in our life, which is great. That part actually isn't the hardest part to teach, the strategy. It's really common sense. It's strategic, it's intelligent. It's basically, jot this down, common sense. You say, Jamie, I've flown all this way to come to a seminar about common sense. Is that what you're telling me? Absolutely. They shouldn't call it common sense though, should they? They should call it perhaps uncommon sense. It's very rare. Okay? We're not allowed to hold common sense seminars in Canberra, by the way. That's why we're in Brisbane. So, common sense, unfortunately, is very uncommon, but let's test the theory. So this weekend is not about what I think. This weekend is about challenging you to think. Because as individuals and humans, we're entitled to think what we want. The question is what you're thinking, what your beliefs are they empowering you to be a better person and make a difference to the world? Or are they disempowering and holding you back? Is that a fair enough judge? That's the key. Think what you want to think. Believe what you want to believe. Be a critical thinker. That's what I encourage. I love debate. But the question is, does it empower you to be a better person? or is it disempowering you? Because we all have a story. And after Warren introduced me to this particular gentleman, I first met my first millionaire mentor. He was asking, because I was trying to convince him not only to get a job, but I was trying to convince him that I was really committed and I wanted him to be my mentor. I mean, I get approached by people all the time, will you be my mentor, etc. And so he asked me a few questions. He said one of the questions was, how much are you saving right now? So I was feeling I wanted to become a millionaire in my 20s. So he asked, how much are you saving? I'm like, now at the time I wasn't saving anything. I was like, but you don't understand. I had this business and I go into the story of how my business partner ripped me off and I've got all this debt. I didn't get paid my commissions from the telecommunications company and I wasn't saving anything, blah, blah, blah. Story. Now, it may be a true story, but it was a story. And he said, don't waste my time. He said this to me. He said, if you can't save money, jot this down. If you can't save money, then you can't live your dreams. Simple as that. If you can't save money, you can't live your dreams. I thought, I knew it. All rich people are bastards. Because that's what I used to think. Like, as a kid, I don't know whether you can relate to this, but growing up on a farm, when a nice car drove down the country road, like a Mercedes-Benz, me and my brothers and my sister, we used to go, bet they're drug dealers. Or they stole the next door neighbor's cattle. Where did this thinking come from? Like if someone's got more money or is wealthy, that they're a bad person? This is society's conditioning. Now, we live in Australia, and for those who are here today, those are obviously from different countries, you live in a different country, not Australia. But for those here, we live in Australia. Now, Australia is one of the richest countries on the planet. And in the last decade, the last 15 years, has certainly become the top 1 or 2 richest nations on the planet. I was in Perth delivering an event a month ago, and I was explaining this to the Perth people. I said, not only are you in the richest country on the planet, you're in the richest city, okay, on the planet. And some people are moping around in Perth or moping around in Australia, not even realizing they're rich. How many people in this country think they're poor? Because the challenge most people have, if they want more in your life, you can only manifest more of what you have. The reason I am wealthy is because every morning I wake up. Sir John Templeton, he was the investor, billionaire investor before Warren Buffett. Okay, he was like a Warren Buffett. He made his fortune out of the Great Depression. When no one was touched by company stocks, he was buying great companies really cheaply, and he became a billionaire. Back then, which is a lot of money. So he was interviewed. What is the secret to becoming a billionaire? So everyone's ready to take notes, listening to the billionaire, and are like, they're waiting for the stock tip. What is a stock tip I can invest in that's going to make me a billionaire like Sir John Templeton? And he said, you know what, here's a tip if people want to become wealthy. And this is coming from a billionaire. He said, if people want to become wealthy, they simply should focus on 5 things every morning that they can be grateful for. He said, you can have all the money in your bank account, all the money in the world, but if you lose perspective on what you have, then you lose your wealth. He said, you can have no money in your bank account, but if you can focus on the things that you are grateful for, then you're truly wealthy. And they were wise words. And ever since that day, almost every day in my life, I wake up, first, 5 things I'm grateful for. And is it possible, if you're honest with yourself, that you could find, no matter in the darkest days of your life, that you could find things you could be grateful for? Yes or no? Yes. Absolutely. See, wealth, jot this down, wealth comes from gratitude. All wealth stems from gratitude. If you have gratitude for what you have, you can manifest more of that what you want. All wealth stems from gratitude. It's very simple. It's an attitude. Now, where does poverty stem from? Would you like to know? Considering we're in a country that has a habit of this, and I know it's a national debate, but I'll give you a clue. Poverty, jot this down. Poverty stems from entitlement. All poverty stems from entitlement. Those who feel they're entitled to something for nothing, that is poverty. So in a rich country like Australia, it's sad to say, we have a lot of poor-minded thinking people, and that's why they're broke. They're broke financially, they're broke emotionally, they're broke spiritually, because what's between their two ears is broke. It's their perspective. They live in a rich country and think they're poor. How do you pull that off? Explain that to the poor kids in Africa. I live in Australia, I'm feeling sorry for myself. Oh, you can't become a millionaire in Australia, it's just for the lucky few. Everything's a scam, nothing works. I mean, get rich quick seminar, that's all that is. That's how people think, is it true? Yeah, let me ask this question. Does anyone have a monopoly in Australia on becoming a millionaire, yes or no? See, there was a journalist who did a story, she was at my Perth event. And, there's probably some good journalists out there, I just haven't met many of them. And I feel sorry for them, really. And I'm so glad social media has come along because it's giving people at least an alternate perspective. Why should we have to see the world through a lowly paid, cynical journalist's view of the world? Because when you read the newspapers of the past, and that used to be the major news source, newspapers of the past, 19th, 20th century, is that if someone has a cynical view, which generally you have to be a journalist, and then you have to, and everything's a scam, nothing works, the world's just a horrible place. And you see it through those eyes, that's what most people see the world through. Now, is the world a horrible place, yes or no? Well, it really depends what you focus on, is that true? Is there horrible things happening in the world right now, yes or no? Yes. Is there wonderful things happening in the world right now? Yes. So it's ultimately what you focus on will determine your reality. Jot this down. Perception is reality. Whatever you perceive to be true is true for you. Does it make sense? Perception is reality. And you must understand that. Some of you in this room are just one perspective away from having pretty much everything you want. One perspective away. Just a shift in perspective. And things will flow to you in your life faster than you ever imagined before. Well, Jamie, that sounds too good to be true. And we're taught in society, if something sounds too good to be true, probably is. Okay? That's what most people believe. Jot these things down. These are what we call cultural belief systems. Cultural belief systems. Now, if you believe what the average person believes, let's apply common sense. If we think like the average person, would it be understandable to accept if we think like the average person will produce the results of the average person? Yes or no? Yes. You would say that would be true. Do pensioners think differently to millionaires? Yes or no? Yes. The question is, what is that difference? There's a difference in thinking. See, so many of us, when I first went to my millionaire mentor, I was like, just show me the money. Yeah, he told me I should read some books, I should work on myself, I should get a better attitude, I should develop, invest in personal development. I'm like, yeah, I've been to seminars, I've read all the books. Just show me the money, okay? Just show me the money. I've got this debt, I've got to pay rent soon to my friend, I'm sleeping on his couch, my life's a mess, everything sucks, he ripped me off, it's not my fault, Pretty much this is what I was doing. Now, I know no one in this room or anyone watching would ever have done this before, but this is for other people, okay, that have done. This is not for anyone in this room, but this is what other people do. Draw a line on your page. There's above the line, and there's below the line. So if we're going to be successful, I'm going to suggest that we have to, in life, live above the line. If you want to know how to fail miserably and have a miserable life, be broke, be upset, be angry, think the world sucks, then free bonus for you, you need to study below the line. Does it make sense? Below the line, to live a life below the line, we're going to have to do this a lot. We're going to have to what? Blame. Blame ourselves or blame others? generally blame others. It's not my fault, it's because of them, you don't understand. You know, people like, is it true some people have a rough upbringing? They don't have loving family support. Say, I was blessed, it's true. It was true, I was raised in a wonderful family, and I still have, you know, my parents still alive today, and I had very good traditional values and a great family upbringing. So I was loved a lot as a kid. So yes, is that an advantage? I would say yes, it's an advantage if I'm grateful for it. True. Where I was talking to a girl last night and she's sharing her story, which I thought was very inspiring, you know, how, you know, she had a really difficult upbringing, you know. Her family was involved in crime, you know, her mother ended up, was raped, so her mother ended up becoming a prostitute and drugs. She lived in, you know, 27 different homes. She had a really tough life, and she's gone on to build a successful career and turn out a really focused, driven individual. And I said, you have an amazing story, you should really share that, because there's a lot of women or other people who'd really be inspired by that. It's not your circumstances that determine your destiny. Is it true? Unless we choose to use it as, jot this down, the other thing we have to do, apart from blaming everyone else for our total lack of success in our life, we have to do this. Have lots of what? Lots of excuses. Oh, you don't understand. You know, my parents didn't love me, or they got divorced at a young age, or you know, I went to a crap school, okay? Well, the crap school one is you know, really doesn't make any difference. The difference between private education and public education, the difference in what happens in the end result is pretty minimal. Does it make sense? Okay, so we can't use that as an excuse. Didn't go to school, can't use that as an excuse, probably a huge advantage, okay? The ironic thing is, one of the most successful people on the planet generally dropped out of school or university. Like Richard Branson, who's been one of my business mentors for the last 10 years. You know, he was dyslexic, and you know, at school he's considered dumb, and you know, he dropped out of school at a young age, but went on to becoming, you know, a multi-billionaire, one of the most recognized entrepreneurs on the planet. So am I saying, for those out there watching, that you should drop out of school or university early? No, that's not what I'm saying. But I'm suggesting to you, the rebels often went on to succeed. Why? Because at school we're taught to conform, but to succeed in today's world, we need to be creative. We need to be able to solve problems, think differently, think outside the box, come up with fresh ideas, okay? And it's usually our frustrations that lead. If you have a frustration in your life, that is a great business opportunity. Does it make sense? Great business opportunity, because if you can solve that frustration, there's a fair chance there's other people on this planet that have a similar frustration. And some of the greatest businesses have come out of someone discovering a frustration and then fixing it. Look at Facebook as an example. You don't even need to come up with the idea to become a billionaire. Did Mark Zuckerberg come up with the idea of a Facebook? Yes or no? He actually didn't. The idea of a Facebook was pushed by remember Facebook was originally on print. A Facebook was all the people you went to college with or to school with, all the pictures of your classmates. That was a Facebook. And all the colleges, the top colleges in America were all saying, we really should take the Facebooks and put them online. And now putting that idea out there, that's what someone should do. That's what we need to happen. Mark just decided to take that idea, even though in the beginning it wasn't set out to change the world and make a positive difference. I think it was to something, you know, to pick up girls or something like that. Whatever drove them, okay, in the beginning, I'll have a bit of fun. But the point is, he took that idea, but the key is, why did he become one of the wealthiest and youngest billionaires on the planet? Because he acted on the idea. Does it make sense? We must either come up with the idea or find the idea, but the most successful people are ones that execute ideas the best. Bill Gates, multi-billionaire, one of the wealthiest people on the planet, has been at times the wealthiest person on the planet. Was MS-DOS his idea, yes or no? If you're not sure, it wasn't his idea. He bought the idea, I think for $50,000. But was he good at executing the idea better than everyone else? Yes. It all comes down to the ability, jot this down, it comes down to your ability to act. There's a Nike ad, says what? And if we only could summarize this weekend down into that, it's so true, it's just do it. How many people are here talking about what they're going to do? And as a coach and mentor, I don't give a damn. I'm not interested in talking about what people are going to do. What am I interested in? So when I'm mentoring people, I don't generally mentor people one-on-one, but just friends and people that I talk to, and people ask for advice anyhow, and I will say, look, all I'm doing anytime and what I'll do this weekend, all I'm interested in is getting you to act. Because if you take action, something's going to happen. We don't know exactly what's going to happen, but something will happen. And if you have a thing called, jot this down, a thing called sensory acuity, which basically means having acute senses, noticing detail. If you have sensory acuity, you take action and you notice what's working, what's not. That's what you're going to do. But of course, there's a shortcut to that. Would anyone care to know what the shortcut is that could save you 5, 10, 15, possibly 20 years or more to get from A to point B where you want to go? Would anyone? Raise your hand, make some noise if you'd be interested in knowing the shortcut. I can't hear you from Russia, okay, Singapore, yep, Europe, America. Yes, everyone would like to know the shortcut. Now, some people will say, Jamie, there is no shortcut. Jot this down. Bullshit, okay? I'm not sure how that translates into Russian. I know a little bit of Russian, but I don't know the swear words, okay? Privyet, как dela. So the point is, there is a shortcut. And the shortcut isn't complex. What you'll understand this weekend, because some people go, oh, when you hear a lot of the strategy, you go, well, that's quite simple. It can't be that simple. Why? Because we're conditioned by society to think to be successful, you have to work hard. It has to be a struggle. The only people that we make it are, they're lucky, okay? They're lucky. Like some people go, Jamie, you were just lucky. You got into real estate in the 90s when there was a massive property boom. You were just lucky. That's how you did it. Jot this down. Bullshit. Was I lucky? Yes, I was lucky. But back then, there was 19 million other Australians in this country. Guess what? I was no luckier than the other 19 million Australians. Why did I outperform and the others didn't? I can tell you now, because I simply did something. I actually went and acted. One, I educated myself rapidly. So I accelerated, decades of knowledge, and I compressed it into a few short years. I took all the knowledge that my multi-millionaire mentor had taken decades to learn to become very wealthy. I took those insights and I compressed it down and I applied it to my life. So what is the shortcut? Jot this down. The shortcut is simple. We're simply going to copy. We're going to copy. But Jamie, we were taught at school not to copy. Yeah, that's why you're not a multi-billionaire. Make sense? Scrap what you were taught at school. If your teachers are living the dream life that you want, go back to school and study them. But what you're taught at school is mostly wasteful and not of any benefit to you, okay? The fact you can read, write, add up is a bonus. That's about all that's beneficial. But many kids coming out of school today can't even do that, okay? So we're taught not to copy. I'm going to tell you now, copy. But of course, we don't use the word copy. Jot this down. I'm going to use the word modeling. We model. It's called modeling. Now, I know in China, they think copyright is the right to copy. So I'm not suggesting to my international friends that we should steal intellectual property, which is a Western idea, okay? I'm not suggesting that, so don't rush out there and go, shit, Jamie McIntyre told me to copy and steal intellectual property, so I'm going to go and steal as much as I can. No, we're not stealing intellectual property. But interesting in China, in China, they perceive that if you basically copy something, it's like, what's the word? It's like a compliment. You're complimenting someone's work. In Western ideas, we feel that if you copy, you're stealing someone's ideas. So obviously we have intellectual property to reserve the person first comes up with that idea, some royalty or financial benefit from others using it. Make sense? Okay. There's nothing wrong with that. That's not what I'm suggesting. What I'm suggesting we should model. So if you want to accelerate your results in any aspect of your life, whether it's financial, business, career, relationships, health, emotional, whatever aspect of your life, then what we're simply going to do, find someone that has already done what you want to do, or find a business, if you want to model a business, that's already achieved what you want to do, and model it. You learn from it. And then you adapt it, amend it to your personality, who you are, and what you want to do. And the point is this, because if we don't do this, this is the shortcut to success. We model. The alternative to modeling is this. And if society didn't model, we'd still be in the dark ages. Why? If someone already invented the wheel, should you today, after you go through a process will help you discover your life purpose, go, I know what my life purpose is. I'm going to rediscover the wheel, because that is going to add massive value to society. Is that going to be beneficial or not? Yes or no? No, because someone's already discovered the wheel. So your job is not to rediscover what's already been discovered. Your job is to make the wheel a better what? Wheel. A better wheel. Does it make sense? Model what's created and make it better. To create wealth, jot this down. You must add what? You must add value. Your primary goal of starting a business or being in a career is to add value to society. The more value you add, the wealthier you'll become. Number 2 rule to create wealth, must add value, and 2, you must make a profit. See, a lot of people go, yeah, I add a lot of value, but I'm not making any money. Well, this is the dynamic and challenge you have to create. You have to be able to add value and add value in a way that still makes a profit. It's got to be a win-win. But say, Jamie, what if it's a non-profit organization? What if I just want to help people? Great, so that's what you should want to do. But non-profit organizations still make a profit, is that true? The profit just goes back into the purpose, the mission, the organization, whether it's profit or non-profit. If it's profit for profit, some of the profit goes out in dividends to the shareholders or the owner of the business. Make sense? They still have to make a profit. Actually, the gentleman owns Flight Centre, Graham Turner, Screw they call him. I was reading a story about him last night on the plane up here, and how he was coaching his wife. They've been together since childhood sweethearts, and they've built, Flight Centre is a multi-billion-dollar company today. You'll be familiar with it. They're in about 30 different other companies and global brands in the travel industry. And his wife started creating, as really not for profit, just for them to have breaks and holidays, creating boutique bed and breakfast type resorts in Australia. And it was really just for her as a project. It wasn't meant to be about profit. It was really just to try and get her husband to go away and have a break from working all the time, as men tend to like to work all the time. I'm sure some women like to do that as well. But anyhow, it ended up growing, and then with his advice and mentoring, she's realized that, well, it should really become, if it becomes profitable, not just a fun thing, but also profitable, it can sustain itself. Because it might sound like fun in the beginning, but if it's losing money, it's never going to be around long term. Does it make sense? But if it can become profitable, sustain itself, it can grow, and then they can take it, use it as a holiday location, or other people can. So the challenge in business is that profit is generally a dirty word. Okay? In Australia, we have this ideology that if someone's wealthy, that they're a bad person. I used to feel guilty, like, I want to become wealthy, but I want to help people. Like it was like the idea that was two separate things. The best way to help the poor, my millionaire mentor told me, is guess what? Not be one of them. Okay, that's what he taught me. Not be one of them, because if you're so worried about trying to survive materially and financially yourself, you have less time, resources, and energy to help other people. So I used to think, well, rich people are greedy. Well, there probably is some rich people that are greedy. But is there some poor people that are greedy too? So the idea is if we, and he said, well, Jamie, who's the greedy one here? I have 15 times the income that I need to live a great life. I do very well. I have the time and money to be able to help others. Where you, on the other hand, are broke, he said to me. You don't have the time or money to be able to help yourself. So how can you help others? Who's following what I'm saying here? What do they tell you on the plane? In the event of emergency, put the life mask on who first? Yourself. You have to take care of yourself to be strong so then you can help others. Too many other people are trying to help others and it's dragging them down. Be strong first. Build yourself up so you're able to help others. Who's following what I'm saying here? Okay? So we have to get over the idea of money is this root of all evil. Remember, my job is not to tell you how to think, because who am I to tell you how to think? It's nothing to do with me. This weekend is not about me. But my job is, as a friend and coach, is to challenge you to think. Because there's a famous book some of you have probably read. It's called Think and Grow what? Rich. Think and Grow Rich. And effectively, that's what we have to do. We have to become critical thinkers. If you're going to become sophisticated investors to become wealthy, if that's your goal, you have to be able to learn to think critically. To be able to decipher what's real, what's not, and what's bullshit. True? Yeah. Now, the great thing about Australians is that we're culturally in tune to knowing what bullshit is, generally. Okay? But we have to be able to identify that. We have to know what's true and what's not. And a lot of people can't. The funny thing is, people that say, don't read everything you believe in the newspaper, are generally the people that believe everything that's in the newspaper. Does it make sense? They can't read between the lines. We have to be discerning to know what's really going on. Okay? What's really the truth? A lot of people believe this, they'll believe that, then they're confused, they don't know what the hell's going on. Okay? We have to be able to figure that out and read between the lines. Same thing with investing. People are controlled by fear, and you see the newspapers play on that. And then other things that can affect people is they're fearful they won't invest, or then they become greedy and want to get rich quick. This is the two dynamics: want to get rich quick or fearful, don't do anything. Okay? Where in between, in the middle, is a happy medium. I'm going to meet Warren Buffett in a couple of weeks. And I wrote a book on Warren a few years ago. And if you ever want to, get into the stock market or invest in companies, if you read that book, it's one book that I know that, because it talks about his story so much and his lessons, that simply by reading the book, you start thinking like Warren Buffett by the time you finish the book. It's so powerful. Because when you understand his thinking and how he's been successful, you go, this is so simple. It's such common sense. But Warren Buffett is the oracle of common sense. Like, he's the god of common sense. Have you heard some of his speeches or what he says? The guy is just very intelligent, but basic common sense. And it's very powerful. And that's all we need to do very well and outperform. Okay? Because most people too greedy. Okay? So a good test is that when you're catching a taxi, well, I don't believe in taxis anymore. I prefer Uber. I believe in disruption. I don't like industries that rip off people and overcharge. And I was having a debate with a taxi driver on the way. I should have got an Uber last night from the airport. So I'm in a taxi and like, why am I doing this to myself? Like, they don't even help you put your bags in your car. And I'm thinking, I was with my GM, I'm like, this is great service, isn't it? It's a hot taxi, crappy driver. And I just couldn't help myself, but I'm saying to my GM, I'm going, you know that Uber, like, they make out that Uber, like, it's not safe to go in an Uber car because, taxis are safer. But I'm saying, isn't that a load of bullshit? Because think about it. On Uber, thanks Uber for sponsoring this event too, by the way. I'm joking. But actually, if you want to sign up to Uber, can we get an affiliate link for that? The point being is that I said it's safe on Uber. It's safer on Uber because, like, you can see who the driver is before the car even comes. It's tracked everywhere where the car goes. So if something happens, they know where you are. Okay? Taxi, you don't know that. So anyhow, what were you talking about Uber for? Disruption of industries that, Richard Branson become a billionaire. And you go, what's his strategy? What is his philosophy? What if I could model that? Well, if you like to model Richard Branson, you're going to find that he became a billionaire by a simple strategy. Would you like to know what it is? Yeah. Would you really like to know what it is? Make some noise. Yes. So it's very simple. Richard Branson's business strategy is identify an industry that is, one, overcharging. Is that very hard to find? No. Heaps of industries overcharging. Two, second rule, is providing bad customer service. Is there plenty of industries like that you can think of? This next idea, if you want to create wealth, how many ideas are just an idea away from creating something that can add value to society? That's what you want to be thinking of. So is providing bad customer service. And thirdly, that he can go into that industry and deliver a better service, ideally at a better price, and still make a profit. That's his third criteria. That is his recipe for Virgin to become a multi-billion-dollar group of companies. Find industries overcharging, providing poor service, and can he go into that industry and deliver a better service? Well, as he says, for your staff to smile, does it cost any extra for your staff to smile? So you can fly Qantas, and if you want to smile, you have to pay extra. But you fly Virgin, they smile for free. So he figured out if he trained and created a culture of staff that would be happier, create a happier culture, though if you treat your team better, then they will treat the customers better. So it costs him nothing to deliver better service other than just a goal to do that. And then as a matter of how can you undercut that? He launched Virgin Blue in Australia with Brett Godfrey. Brett present it to Richard on a napkin, the idea to start an airline in Australia. And Richard backed him. Richard, wrote out a check personally to Brett Godfrey for $10 million to launch the company. And Virgin Blue become a $2 billion company. Who would like to turn 10 million into 2 billion? Okay. Yeah, I knew it. Some people go, I can hear them now, around the world. I knew it. You need to have money to make money. It's all right. Richard had $10 million. If I had $10 million, I could make $2 billion too. Jot this down. Bullshit. Now, this is a controversial one. Gina Rinehart. I know she's not someone that supports entitlement in this country. I know she's a very unpopular, because if you're a multi-billionaire saying that, of course you're going to attract a lot of negative attention. But a lot of people go, oh, well, Gina was born she inherited the wealth, so what right did she have to speak on wealth? Even though it's not true. Gina, I have met Gina. She actually is a very sweet lady. She inherited her dad's mining companies, debt-laden companies, which she helped build, by the way, since she was a child, and grew that, from a very small business to a $20 billion empire. So as far as creating wealth, I think, that didn't happen by accident. I know some people like to think, well, she inherited it. She didn't inherit a wealth. She had to create that. And for creating that, discovering the Pilbara is one of the reasons why Australia is so rich today. So whether we like someone because they're, or dislike someone because they're incredibly wealthy, what we've got to understand is we've got to look at the facts. And the idea is very clear. This weekend is that we've got to understand abundance comes from gratitude. Poverty stems from entitlement. Now, you'd know this to be true in your own family. I'm one of 5 boys, 1 sister, one of 6. So for some reason, my dad, who I love dearly, is one of my greatest mentors, he really assisted me in becoming wealthy simply by making me stand on my own 2 feet. So he didn't bail me out. I didn't believe I was entitled to anything. He made me work hard. He made me work for my money. He didn't give me handouts. If I got into trouble, he didn't bail me out. He went guarantor once for me to borrow $20,000 to travel overseas to attend seminars when I was broke, had no money. I sold my car, wasn't enough to pay for these courses. I got my dad to go guarantor for personal loan, but he said, look, if you don't do this, if it doesn't work out, whatever, you have to pay the money back, not me. So he helped me do that. So I was, some people say, well, you got to be, it's expensive to learn. Well, these days, it's not that exactly expensive to learn, is it? You can get so much education for free on YouTube or live streaming from 20th Century Education or 20th Century TV. You can get so much education now for free. But back, 20 years ago, there weren't seminars like this in Australia you could come to. You had to go overseas, spend a lot of money. But I was thinking, my friends were going, "You're crazy. Why are you paying all this money for these expensive seminars? It's just a rip-off." And I'm thinking to myself, I just spent a fortune going to university, they're the most expensive seminars on the planet, and I'm not kind of learning the things I really wanted to learn. Nothing wrong with university. It's great to have a degree, but it's not everything. It's not going to guarantee success in life. It's going to help, but not going to guarantee it. So there's a different perspective in thinking. I realized, well, what's the best investment I can make? If I borrow $20,000, sell my car, go overseas and attend courses and study and hang around really successful people, I'm investing in myself. And if I'm prepared to do that, then, I believe I'm going to do better in life. I wasn't asking for someone else to invest in me before I was willing to invest in myself. Does it make sense? I didn't make excuses. I didn't blame others. I wasn't living in denial, which is not a river in Egypt. A lot of people will live in denial. I was prepared to put my money where my mouth is. I was prepared to do what it takes to invest in me. So people say, where's the first place I should invest? Where should you invest? In yourself. You should continually read, learn, and grow. We'll talk about it tomorrow, 6 human needs. But one of the reasons if you're not as happy as you'd like to be, I can tell you now, you're not growing enough. When you grow, learn, and become a better person, you're happier. True? And that's why a lot of you are here. That's why many of you have been here in the past and you've come back again. Who's here for the second or third time? Raise your hand. Wow. So these people failed the first time, so they had to come back second time, okay? No, they just come back because now you're a different person. Is that true? This event, you'll learn different things or notice different things you didn't from the first event or if you've been to several events, because you show up as a different person. And you also know that it's an ongoing process, education. This is really about putting yourself in an environment where you can check on your progress, reset some goals, tap into your drive, look at new concepts or ideas that can perhaps accelerate you from A to B where you want to go, and fine-tune things. Some of you, it's just a fine-tuning. Some of you are already doing remarkably well, I know. I hear the stories every day of my life. I mean, it's amazing that, it's pretty much everywhere I go around the country, even overseas, I can be walking down the street. I remember being in India for the first time, and people were coming up to me wanting me to sign they had copies of my book. So because people often in Australia, we have one value of education, but overseas in emerging markets, people are so hungry for education because they know education is so valuable. Like, I've spent a lot of time in Russia. Russia is one of my most favorite countries on the planet. And I think it's good to go to different countries to get different perspectives on the world. We've grown up in a very westernized nation in Australia, so we very much grew up with America is, the greatest nation on the planet, and whatever they say, you must go, okay? But it's good to see the other side of the perspective. And one thing I like about Russia, even though they have their own challenges, is that the quality of their education is far superior to the education we get in a rich country like Australia. Like, Russians are generally highly educated, much more intelligent generally, much more sophisticated, really good education system. Where in a lot of our countries, we've failed to really deliver a high-quality education. And it's really wasting a lot of human capital, human potential. Okay? Go to India. How much do they value education? Like, they study hard. Like, we have a lot of Indian migrants that work throughout our companies here in Australia. And they're some of the hardest working people. Like, it leads me to an interesting thing. Did you know that if you migrate to Australia, you're 4 times more likely to become a self-made millionaire? Do you know that? 4 times more likely to become a self-made millionaire. Raise your hand if that's good news for you. For some of you go, great news, I was born overseas, okay? For those watching overseas, migrate to Australia, you're 4 times more likely to become a self-made millionaire than these. Who's these Aussies in the room? Put your hand up if you're born here. Okay, all you guys, I'm charging you double. You guys are hard work. I should charge you 4 times the amount for the same education, okay? Because it's that much harder to get you to achieve your results. Why? Because you're born here. If we're born here, often we have a sense of what? Sense of entitlement. See, jot this down. Humans require contrast. Humans require contrast. How the hell would you know what rich is if you've never experienced poverty? True? We need contrast as a human to know, how do we know what's good and what's bad if we don't have contrast? So in Australia, there's many people. You could be the poorest person in the country, in Australia, and did you realize you're one of the richest people on the planet? Do you know that? But there's a lot of people who don't feel very rich. One of the poorest people in Australia would be one of the richest people on the planet. But there's a lot of people that are bitching and moaning, want more handouts, want more entitlement, and expect someone owes them a living. That breeds poverty. Or if you want to turn someone into a poverty type person, just give them a handout for nothing. As soon as the brain gets something for no effort, then are they super motivated to really work hard, or now they super motivated to not work hard? It destroys people, okay? See, I'm a capitalist, in case any of you are wondering. But I believe, and I don't think I know socialism and capitalism, and we're going to have a debate all day long about that. I don't think capitalism has all the answers. We know socialism definitely doesn't have the answers, but capitalism doesn't have all the answers. So I believe in a balance. I believe in, jot this down, compassionate capitalism. That's what I believe in. We want to create a society that's financially sound, that has financial abundance, and you want to create that in your own life. So you have enough to be able to help those less fortunate. But we don't want to give people a hand out, we want to give them a hand up. Is it true? Yeah. And we know that to be true. One of the reasons why I've liked encouraging people to become investors, not only to assist them having more abundance in their life, but there is something magical when an individual buys their first property or buys something they own themselves, especially young people. You see a young person, they buy their first property. Do you notice how they walk that much taller, that much prouder? You notice how they believe they have a future? Because why would you invest in the future if you didn't believe you had one? See, if you're not saving money and spending everything you earn, what you're subconsciously saying to yourself, I don't have a future worth saving for. I don't have a future worth investing in. Live today because I could be dead tomorrow. It's a great philosophy until you wake up with a goddamn awful hangover the next day. Do you know what I'm saying? So yes, we should celebrate life. And I believe that. I'm a big celebrator of life. I throw parties for my friends all the time because I teach people to enjoy life, not become workaholics. The reason I'm not a workaholic is because my first millionaire mentor, he was. So I took the good things from him that would add to my life, but I noticed, see, we're either an example of how to live or a warning of how not to live. True? We're an example of how to live or warning not how to live. Now, if we're completely honest with ourselves, we're actually probably a combination of both. Is that true? In some areas of your life, you'd be like an amazing example. Let's say you have a great relationship and people really admire your relationship. Okay, you'd be an example. But let's say in the area of health, you don't look after your health, you eat a lot of sugar, you have an acid diet, you might be slightly overweight, you're probably a warning of what not to do because you extrapolate what you're doing to yourself 5-10 years from now and it's not healthy. Make sense? So we're probably a combination of both. So my first mentor in many areas financially was an example of what I could learn from. In other areas were a warning. Now the big warning was he was a workaholic. His relationship suffered. And as a result of that, I thought, you know what? As I create businesses, I want businesses to run ideally without me so I don't have to be always working. Because I want to see the world. A business should give me life, not take my life. I want to have, life should be like a spiritual venture where you're open and you're not rigid. You can actually, if something comes up, you can travel the other side of the world like the next day. You have that flexibility. Or you can meet interesting people. Because I believe everyone comes into your life for a reason. Is it true? The challenge is most people aren't consciously aware of what that reason could be. It could just be a passing conversation. It could be something someone just says. Not even knowing that they're meant to say that to you, that's going to change the complete direction of your life. But because you met them and you had a conversation, your life slightly changes now, but that slight detour, slight direction, a year from now, you're heading in a completely different direction. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, your life is completely different. Does it make sense? All because maybe someone said something back then. Just like this weekend, many of you are going to learn ideas or interaction with fellow human beings and teachings, etc. Might make a huge difference tomorrow, but a year from now, your life is heading in a different direction. A decade from now, your life is completely different. Why? Because you put yourself in an environment for those coincidences to happen. Repeat after me. Something to think about. Turn to the person next to you. Quickly teach them at least 3 things you've learned so far. And the other person can teach back 3 things, and I'll walk around the room to see who hasn't been listening.